Many believe that Bruce Lee never competed in real tournaments out of fear, and that he wasn't truly a real fighter. But how true or false are those claims? To uncover the truth, we must turn to the testimonies of fighters and champions of the time who witnessed his incredible skills, as well as the evidence that has endured to this day. Living legends of martial arts, such as Joe Louis, Hayward Nishioka, Jim Kelly, and Dan Inosanto, all recognized champions and contemporaries of Lee, agree that Bruce was one of the fastest, most precise, and most lethal fighters of his time.
For a guy who only weighed 138 pounds, and he weighed less than that when he passed away, he hit extremely hard. He could hit as hard as a heavyweight.
I fought the best. I trained with the best. I know great martial artists. There's never been anybody, in my opinion, like Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee was unbelievable.
How in the hell did I go flying back 6 feet, hit the wall, fall off, and fall down on the ground? I am the Pan American gold medalist for judo.
I know who Bruce Lee sparred with, but Bruce Lee was untouchable.
Joe Louis stated that Bruce far surpassed many traditional champions in speed and effectiveness. And believe me, this was not a man who feared a real fight. But let's pause for a moment on the main question we all ask ourselves. If the Dragon was truly that good, according to so many expert masters, why did Bruce Lee never compete in any tournament? To answer that question, we need to understand what those tournaments were like at the time, and why Bruce Lee disliked the idea of taking part in them. Point fighting replaced full contact strikes with controlled attacks, where judges valued technical form over real impact. This moved competitions away from an authentic fight and reinforced Bruce Lee's vision of martial arts as something more practical and adaptable. In most tournaments of that era, especially in the United States, the fighting was point-based and had very restrictive rules, such as limited or even prohibited contact to the face. The fight stopped after each point was scored. No grabs, sweeps, or continuous strikes were allowed. For Bruce, this was like stopping a fight every few seconds, stripping it of realism and effectiveness. He believed that combat should flow, without pauses, and with the freedom to use all kinds of techniques. Another aspect that didn't convince him was the closed-minded mentality of styles. In those years, tournaments were often dominated by very traditional schools of karate, taekwondo, or kung fu, which defended their methods and looked suspiciously at those who mixed techniques. Bruce broke away from that tradition, integrating boxing, fencing, Chinese martial arts, and any technique that worked, regardless of its origin. This clashed with the more conservative organizers and masters, since the Dragon was always seeking to evolve, obsessed with perfecting and adapting other styles until he made them his own. According to many testimonies, Bruce always sought to extract the best from each technique, and that became the foundation of Jeet Kune Do. Figures like Chuck Norris, Joe Louis, and Bob Wall confirmed that Bruce Lee possessed speed, power, and technique far above average, while also admiring and valuing his philosophy and style.
I don't think my films are in the same range as Bruce's. Bruce's films were primarily
Jeet Kune Do style. He was a principle-centered person. That means when he taught me to throw punches, taught me to throw kicks, don't throw blanks. Put some emotion into it, put some feeling into it. And then he always had some new kick that he was working on. So he would lift his leg out and he'd fire a side kick or something. He'd hold his leg out and he'd say, very charming, very intelligent, very creative. Then we'd go through the workout and the kendo gloves. And Bruce Lee had me fire a forehand strike at him. So I fired it at him. He sort of slipped off the side, but I was getting pretty quick in those days. Then he asked me to fire it again. I fired again. His timing wasn't quite there yet. Then the third time I fired it, he slipped to the side and came back with a triple counterpunch. Pow, pow, pow.
Master Steve Muhammad, who, if you don't remember, appeared in Enter the Dragon in a cameo, deeply admired Bruce Lee and even declared that he had perfect timing and was fully capable of fighting in the streets.
His fighting style changed. Movie to actually street, it changed a lot. He had what I call uncanny timing. He wasn't that fast, but at timing, there's speed in time now. But if you ask me if he could get a wood fight in, Absolutely, he would.
Let's remember that he wasn't just any master. He even sparred with Bruce Lee and competed against figures like Chuck Norris and Joe Louis, so he knew exactly what he was talking about. He was so skilled that he admitted both he and Bruce learned from each other. Another one of his exact statements was that Bruce Lee was a formidable opponent. The perfect timing mentioned earlier by Master Steve, so to speak, gave Bruce Lee the ability to know exactly when you were about to pull the trigger, while you never knew when he was going to strike. This statement aligns perfectly with what Joe Louis expressed, which further reinforces the importance of this skill, essential to gaining a considerable advantage in a real fight. Steve Muhammad's feat is truly impressive, since very few could keep up with the Dragon in free sparring due to his speed and timing. Likewise, Jim Kelly never hesitated to acknowledge Bruce Lee's abilities in interviews. He even made an astonishing confession during Enter the Dragon.
I will tell you that, speaking of Bruce Lee, guy, it was absolutely unbelievable. You know, it's so many people don't know how great he was. I mean, people always ask me to come up here, they say, Jim, how great was Bruce Lee? I said, you don't really know, and a lot of people won't tell you how great he was, but I will tell you. In my personal opinion, Bruce Lee was a step above everybody. I mean, everybody. During that era, even today, I mean, it holds up today, but during that era, the 60s and 70s, Bruce was just great, and in my opinion, he was just a step above. No matter how great everybody else was, Bruce was, boom, just a little step above. He was just absolutely unbelievable. I'm talking about sparring. I'm not talking about just working techniques. I'm talking about when it came to sparring, Bruce was unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Many underestimate Jeet Kune Do, but this style was all about adapting to the opponent. Let's remember that Bruce Lee revolutionized and inspired the birth of mixed martial arts. The Dragon was, without a doubt, ahead of his time. His most remembered experience was at the 1964 International Karate Championships in Long Beach, where he didn't compete, but left everyone astonished with his speed and demonstrations of strength. Some criticized him for not testing himself in the formal tournament, but he made it clear that his goal was not to adapt to rules that limited effectiveness, but to showcase a martial art without barriers. At the core, for Bruce Lee, a real fight had no judges, no pauses, and no rules. His goal was to train for the unpredictable, not for a controlled setting. There are multiple statements from real champions of karate, boxing, and other styles who sparred with Bruce Lee, true masters in their disciplines. Louis noted that the Dragon taught him how to improve basic techniques such as the lead hand punch and the side kick. He also acknowledged that the Dragon hit hard for his size. Bruce Lee was recognized by his masters and peers as an exceptional martial artist, not only for his physical strength, but also for his analytical and adaptability in combat, qualities that set him apart in the martial world. Numerous authentic testimonies highlight these traits. Joe Louis also stated that if Bruce Lee wasn't the greatest martial artist of all time, he was at least the leading candidate due to his superior skills and effectiveness in combat. Mike Stone described him as one of the strongest pound-for-pound fighters he had ever met, emphasizing that the combination of his strength, speed, and technique would have made him stand out in any competition. Chuck Norris, who trained with him, pointed out that he greatly enjoyed sparring and learning from Bruce, acknowledging his deep knowledge and total dedication to the martial arts. Dan Inosanto, a close student and collaborator, stated that Bruce considered point-based karate competitions a complete joke and a game of touch. He would even imitate Shotokan movements, fully aware that he could dominate the rules if he wanted, but he preferred a more realistic and effective fight. This attitude reflected his philosophy of adaptability, always seeking the most practical and functional system. This principle became the foundation of Jeet Kune Do, a style that integrated elements of boxing, wrestling, and Wing Chun to create a versatile and non-rigid method. Testimonies from other experts highlight Bruce's extraordinary ability to analyze and dismantle his opponent's techniques, quickly adapting to their weaknesses during combat. His constant focus on evolving and not being bound by traditional forms was essential, as he knew that success depended more on fluidity, strategy, and intelligence than on strictly following predetermined techniques. Regarding the question of whether Bruce Lee could have competed in karate tournaments, the general opinion of those who knew him is unanimous. He would have been a formidable competitor, capable of dominating any competition if he had chosen to. However, his refusal to participate was due to the lack of realism in the rules, weight limitations, and rigid structure, which did not align with his vision of practical and adaptable combat. Even figures like Skipper Mullins, considered one of the strongest competitors in his weight category, acknowledged the enormous skill gap between himself and Bruce. Joe Louis observed how Bruce alternated between Jeet Kune Do and Shotokan karate in point-based fights, demonstrating superior skill in technique and timing control. Mike Stone confirmed that the combination of strength, speed, and strategy made Bruce a fighter who would have performed extremely well in competition. These testimonies strongly reflect Bruce Lee's unique ability to compete and dominate in any martial setting, even though he chose to spread his art through mass media and personalized teaching rather than tournaments. At this point, we can understand the vision of the great master and his true intentions. Bruce Lee channeled his energy into creating a highly effective martial art and into training students capable of evolving Jeet Kune Do and the martial experience itself. He recognized that his legacy would be strengthened more through spreading his method and philosophy than through trophies or medals won in tournaments. His system, based on constant evolution and adaptability, required personalized teaching and a deep understanding that went beyond preparing for any specific tournament. The rigidity of traditional competitions did not fit this dynamic and flexible model. Beyond the economic limitations, tournaments did not offer significant financial rewards. Bruce saw film and television as channels with far greater potential to expand his teaching and philosophy globally. He was a man with a disciplined vision and an unstoppable mindset, who, once focused on a goal, would not stop until he achieved it. His popularity and cultural impact grew precisely because he could showcase his art and ideas to millions of people, far beyond the confines of a ring or a tatami. That is why, more than 50 years later, the Great Dragon Master is still talked about, and his legacy remains more alive than ever. Bruce Lee's decision not to officially compete in martial arts tournaments was the result of the integration of his incredible ability, his profound philosophy, and a strategic analysis of how he wanted to live and leave his mark on the world. It was not a choice born out of fear or lack of courage, but a firm stance consistent with a broader vision, fighting as a path to personal freedom, true expression, and practical effectiveness, not just as a sport. Bruce Lee chose to break all conventional barriers, carve his own path, and leave a legacy that continues to inspire millions. His story is that of a genius who understood that the true fight was in the mind, body, and spirit, and that external limitations, such as competitions, could not contain his immense potential. If you made it this far, don't forget to subscribe and keep enjoying our content, where action and adrenaline never stop. See you next time.